We've been reading the Christmas story in the book of Luke, and so we're kind of been looking at Luke chapter 2. Luke is a physician, right? And he's probably a man of science and a man of order, and he begins the book of Luke by saying exactly why he set out to write this. He says, "Insomuch as many have undertaken to compile a narrative of the things that have been accomplished among us, just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word have delivered them to us, it seemed good to me also, having followed all things closely for some time past, to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, that you would have certainty among the things that you have been taught." He says, "I'm doing this, and other people have done it, but they haven't done it like me. My account is going to be full of eyewitness testimony. I have followed the story closely since the beginning. My account is going to be orderly, and you're going to find all of my findings accurate, and you're going to be certain of these things after you've read it." Right now, churches all across the world, they're celebrating Advent. Advent means arrival. And a few weeks ago, we talked about how Jesus was presented in the temple, and that arrival was witnessed by two people of importance, a man and a woman, Simeon and Anna, two people that represented all of humanity. And remember, Luke said that he would give you eyewitness accounts. So there's also eyewitness accounts of people who saw Jesus die on the cross, people who saw Jesus after he was resurrected. And if you're going to have witnesses, then Jewish custom says in order for it to be admissible, you actually have to have two. So Luke finishes his account with two more witnesses. In Luke 24, he says, "That very day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and were talking with each other about all the things that happened. And while they were talking and discussing together, Jesus himself drew near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, 'What is this conversation that you are holding with each other as you walk?' And they stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, named Cleopas, answered him and said, 'Are you only a visitor to Jerusalem, who does not know the things that have happened here in these days?' And Jesus said to them, 'What things?' And they said to him, 'Concerning Jesus of Nazareth, a man who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all people, and how our chief priests and rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and beside all this, it is now the third day since these things happened, and moreover, some women of our company amazed us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body, they came back, saying they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Some of those who were there with us went into the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see.' And Jesus said to them, 'O foolish ones and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Was it not necessary that Christ would suffer these things and enter into glory?' And so, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, Jesus interpreted to them all the scriptures and things concerning himself." Did you ever wonder what that conversation was like? It's a Bible study from Jesus, right? He's the author of this Bible story, but he's also the author of the Bible story, right? Luke says that Jesus began with Moses. So apparently, to tell the story, Jesus says, okay, we got to go back. Well, actually, we got to go way back, right? But how far back does the Advent story go? It goes back 1,976 years. Before Jesus, God spoke to Abraham. Abraham is the father of the Hebrew people. Moses is the lawgiver. God speaks to Abraham and says, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to a land I will show you, and will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in all the families of the earth shall be blessed." That sounds like an unbelievable promise. That's because it is. God did an amazing, unbelievable thing. Abraham had good standing with God, and then God calls Abraham to this amazing adventure, and Abraham believed it. That long ago. I mean, think about it. Okay, that long ago. Did Abraham even have any clue how big the world even was? No. God said, all the world, right? All the world will be blessed through you. Abraham had no idea that includes every tribe, every ethnic group, every family, every language. Abraham says yes, but in truth, he has no idea how big the world is. And if you read the actual promise, it says the world will be blessed through Abraham, not conquered, right? That would have been a very foreign concept. Nobody takes the world by blessing. Nobody says, hey, I've conquered the world by blessing, right? You do it by force. You do it by war. So the promise of Advent is also one of blessing. How can one person believe all of that? How can one old man be used by God to bless the entire world? God did it. Abraham believed it. God said it, and Abraham followed through. And then we read these accounts of Mary and Zechariah, getting news from an angel, right? An angel right in front of them. And they both question God. How is this going to happen? Even though there's an angel standing right in front of them. And if Abraham, in this moment, has any doubt, if he has any uncertainty or questions, we don't see it in the story, do we? In fact, a little later in Genesis, it says, Abraham believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. What does that mean? Abraham got credit. Credit for what? Well, let's go with that. Let's journey there together. Let's explore the story of Advent. So if we start with Abraham, where do you go from there?
Abraham had many sons,
And
many sons had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. So let's all praise the Lord. Right on. Father Abraham had many sons,
No, I'm not doing that. Okay, he had, and I didn't get to learn that song in school. I always sang it wrong. So Abraham has many sons, right? So he has Zimran and Jokshan and Midian and Midian and Ishbak and Shua and Isaac and Ishmael, right? So those are all the ones at the bottom. But, hold on to your hats, kids. Those are not the 12 tribes of Israel, right? We always say Abraham is the father of Israel, but those are not the 12 tribes. How do we know? Because there aren't 12 sons, right? There's not 12 sons. Abraham has Isaac, right? We know the story. Abraham, Isaac up the mountain. Abraham's going to sacrifice Isaac. God says that Isaac will be the one who the world is blessed through. So Isaac and Rebekah present, and they have a child, and they have Jacob and Esau, right, the twins. And Esau sells his birthright, even though Esau is firstborn. Esau sells his birthright to Jacob. So then Jacob is blessed. Jacob has 4 wives, and of the 4 wives came 12 children, okay? So between his 4 wives, they had 12 kids. So you have Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. So the ones in the red little square. So those are the 12 tribes of Israel. Who knows which line Jesus descends from? Do, 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 do. Huh? Benjamin. What? Oh, there's a pastor yelling over here somewhere. Yes, this is Judah. But Benjamin, I always think Benjamin too, because it's in the prophecy. Jesus came from Judah. In Luke 3, it says the son of David, the son of Jesse, the son of Obed, the son of Boaz, the son of Salah, the son of Nashon, the son of a word I can't pronounce, the son of Admin, the son of Arni, the son of Hezron, the son of Perez, the son of Judah. So Jesus comes from the line of Judah, okay? Judah is the son of Isaac and Leah. So Leah was Isaac's first wife, remember? He was the woman that he was tricked into marrying because Isaac really wanted to marry Rebekah, right? And Laban had 2 daughters, and he said, well, Leah's the oldest, so he wanted to marry Rachel. So he had to marry the oldest daughter first. So another way that Jesus comes from the eldest line is he comes from the first daughter of Laban. So these 12 sons, they become the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes of Israel eventually live near Egypt. Joseph, right, who's up there, so one of the sons becomes advisor to Pharaoh in Egypt. The Hebrew people live in peace. That generation dies away. Nobody remembers that there's some sort of peace going on there. The Hebrews are tumultuous and they're growing too big. The Egyptians decide to make them slaves, which takes you all the way to Moses. So Moses then becomes the foreshadowing to the Messiah. Moses is liberator. Moses is going to make sure the captives are all set free. So the Hebrew people are released, they march to the promised land, and they eventually develop a monarchy of which David is their greatest king. Also, from the line of Judah, obviously, which Jesus is a direct descendant. And when people are looking forward to the Messiah, they are expecting a king like David, who was a warrior. God says to David, when your days are fulfilled and when you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you, this will be Jesus, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. And when the Hebrew people think about David, they think about King David defeated all of his enemies. King David ruled during a time when Israel was a military. That was one of the things that David did well. He built this grand army. David's direct offspring was Solomon, and then once you get into Solomon, then you're in the golden age. And I mean that literally. There's gold everywhere. They were wealthy. During Solomon's reign, Israel lived in peace and in wealth. Solomon grew the army even more, and then he started to establish all of these peaceful relationships with foreign and pagan countries through marriage. You know, people always say, oh, Solomon had all these wives, but that was really his foreign policy. He would develop a relation. That's funny, kind of, but I mean, he would get a peace treaty, and then he would marry, one of their daughters. Isaiah comes along and announces the Messiah is going to take place, because after Solomon, all the kings start to diminish. Their influence wanes. And you think, well, no, we should have had the Messiah during Solomon's reign. That would have been the best time, because that would have been the best time to bless the world through Abraham, because now Israel's at the top of their game. Not only is there peace, but there's wealth, and everyone respects the king. Everyone respects us. They had power and money. Their army is strong. There's peace in the world. And then after Solomon, it seems like we just missed our chance. Like that would have been the best time for the Messiah to come. The kings begin to diminish, and their influence kind of diminishes, and Israel starts to worship other gods. And the story, Abraham's promise, it grows really dark. And when you read the scriptures and you turn to these prophets like Isaiah, people who rise up and they begin to condemn the government. And they warn the people, oh, you got to turn back to God before it's too late. But then also amidst that warning, there's this little hope underneath all of that. The prophets are sending this hope and saying, well, I know it looks bad now, but hope is coming. The prophet Isaiah says, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. The government shall be on his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end. But peace isn't coming. Not right now. And this new kingdom isn't coming. Abraham's promise looks more and more like a broken promise all the time. How is Abraham's promise going to come true? Israel's best days are behind them. Now they have no reach, they have no influence, no other countries in the world take them seriously. And then in 597, King Nebuchadnezzar comes in and wipes out and destroys their city, and he steals off 10,000 people as slaves. And then in 539, you have the Battle of Opis, which makes it even worse. Because at that time, Babylon was the last remaining superpower in Western Asia. Cyrus the Great and the Persian Empire just come in and just take Babylon out. And now the Hebrew people have new masters. So the people of the Lord have been twice run over and twice overthrown. And the prophet Malachi is their last speaker in one of his in the very first testament. And you hear this little faint whispering on the wind of there's an offering of Judah somewhere out there. And then silence. Silence for 400 years. No word from the Lord for 400 years. All they have is this prophet Malachi just out there kind of whispering in the darkness. For from the rising of the sun even to its going down, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. How? How is that going to happen? Blessed through Abraham, God's name will be great. among the Gentiles. There's no possible way. The prophets were liars. Abraham was probably delusional. God isn't real. And then to make it all worse, the Greeks came along, right? The Greeks conquered the Persians, and in 63, Pompey took Jerusalem. Pompey had his army outside the Jerusalem's wall after they rebuilt everything, right? And he was out there for 3 months. Can you imagine being inside Jerusalem for 3 months, knowing that the Greeks were out there? It's hopeless, right? And then when Pompey stormed in, they killed 12,000 people. And to make matters even worse, and to show that he was in charge, Pompey rode his war horse into the temple and into the Holy of Holies. Just to say, I'm in charge. Y'all are mine. Jerusalem was defeated. Again. And it was the final straw. They couldn't even bless themselves. How were they going to bless the world? And just when all hope was lost, when Israel has no influence, no power, no respect, no hope, that's when God intervenes. God moved. And he did something really unusual and really unexpected at a time in history when it absolutely makes no sense. An angel of the Lord speaks to a teenage girl. A baby was going to be born from the line of David, an offering of Judah. His kingdom would have no end. His name would be great among the Gentiles. And you will name him Jesus. An angel comes by night and speaks to a man named Joseph in a dream. Who's Joseph? He's a warrior? He's a prince? No. He's a blue-collar worker. He's a woodworker. He's a day laborer. He's a man who builds nice homes for other people to live in. And the angel tells Joseph, your son will save people from their sins. Is this going to be Abraham's promise? Is this going to be the coming of the Messiah? But maybe not, because Mary and Joseph, they live in Nazareth. It's a tiny nowhere village. And as Hebrews and Jewish people, they read the prophets. They know that Micah says that, O Bethlehem, Ephrathah, you who are too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you shall come forth from me one who is to be the ruler in Israel, whose coming is from old and from ancient of days. The prophet said the Messiah would come from Bethlehem. They live in Nazareth. So the Christmas Savior is going to be born in the same town as the King David was born. And how is that going to take place? And then God moves. God intervenes. God steps in. God does something unexpected. God whispers into the ear of the most powerful man on earth. And Caesar Augustus says everyone should go to their hometown to be registered. Now, Luke says this was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be registered each to his hometown. This is an interesting line. Remember, he is trying to give you an accurate account. Luke is trying to tell you exactly when these things take place. So as the historian in him, he is placing the birth of Jesus at a key time in history, and he's telling you exactly when that takes place. This is not the first time there's ever been a census. There's been other censuses. We have historical documents, and they did censuses in Egypt and all over the place. There had been others. This was the first census when Quirinius was governor of Syria. And if Luke says this was the first one, what does that mean Luke knows? There's another one, right? There's a second or a third. So Luke's telling you exactly when this takes place. There had been censuses even before this with other governors. Luke's saying this is the first census when Quirinius was governor. That's pretty accurate. Caesar is also not counting people. He's taxing people. This is like, hey, we get to go on a long hike so that we can be audited by the IRS. Yay, right? This is more what it's like. They're not going just to go 1, 2, 3. Well, they're not doing that, right? They're taxing you. So Joseph has to go, probably because he is a landowner there, or at least has some sort of ancestral inheritance, some sort of claim to property there. And then so he has to go, but why does Mary have to go? Mary's not from the line of Judah. She's like, dude, I have a baby. I'm staying home. Have fun, right? I'm not going on this trip with you. But because she's from Bethlehem, she's not from Bethlehem, but she's pregnant, right? She's pregnant. She's going to have their child, so the two of them travel together. Surely, Mary and Joseph understand the scriptures, and they understand these prophecies from Israel's Messiah, that the baby has to be born in Bethlehem. That's when you kind of just look at each other and you look at your wife and go, this is crazy, right? It's all coming into place. This is real. And from their perspective, to see the messianic puzzle just start to fall into place, even if those pieces are being moved by the Roman Empire, to say God is using the Romans to make this happen, right? Rome wanted power. They were doing this for power. They were doing this for control. They were doing this for money. God used the greed of Caesar as a way to bless the world. Luke 2 says, in those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth, to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth, and she gave birth to her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling cloths, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. So in that moment, in a smelly room used to house animals, what you and I would call our garage or our carport, right? The end of Advent, the end of waiting. 2,000 years from Abraham, a promise comes true, a blessing to the entire world. Advent means arrival. And on that first Christmas, the waiting is over and the arrival was there. And today, you and I can say, this is all true, right? And I think so often when we are presented with the opportunity to tell the story of Jesus, we say, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know where to start. Our words get all locked up. We can do exactly what Jesus did. We can tell the story that Jesus told on the road to Emmaus. We tell the story from the beginning. We can tell of the promise of Abraham. We can tell of all the victories. We can tell of all the defeats, all the blessings, and then all the times of sorrow. We can tell a story of Advent. We can tell a story of waiting and of arrival. I mean, how did Jesus arrive in your life? How did Advent come true for you? Where was the waiting? Where was the arrival? You had similar moments of blessing, and you had similar moments of defeat. You've been a slave to something. You've been defeated by something. You've been conquered by something. You felt like things were hopeless and you were left for dead. And then, when you least expected it, right? Sunlight, God's voice, a whisper, a messenger, inspiration, hope. Your life that was in turmoil now has peace. And Abraham's promise is true. It's true for you. Your life has been blessed by Abraham. Jesus truly is the light of the Gentiles. And in some way, shape, or form, the way we believe now has all been shaped by this baby from Bethlehem. Abraham's promise came true. Every generation, right? This concept that Abraham could never have understood. Every generation has been blessed. Every family, every tribe, every corner of the globe. The angel told these humble parents that their child would save the world from their sins. And now we know, just like Abraham, exactly where we stand through faith. That's right. I said I would go back and talk about that. Genesis 15:6, Abraham believed the Lord, and God credited it to him as righteousness. What does that mean? See, you and I, we live in this John 3:16 world, right? It's one of our favorite passages. We've been saved by grace. We're not saved by works. We're not saved by actions. It's purely a gift from God's Son. And those who believe in the actions of the cross are saved through righteousness. We are saved through belief. the book of Genesis says Abraham believed, right? God says that Abraham believed and that his faith went into his account, and the scriptures say it counted toward his debt as righteousness. Yeah, but the cross hadn't happened yet. Cross isn't going to happen for 2,000 years. Nobody is saved from faith back then. That's why we call it the Old Testament, right? Okay, but what Jesus did on the cross, it paid the debt for everyone in the world. Don't you believe the cross saved you? The cross saved you, right? It saved the sins. It saved you from your sins, even the sins tomorrow, right? You're not even there yet. There's sins waiting for you tomorrow. Jesus has already saved you from those sins. They haven't even happened yet. So how does the cross have that power? Well, that's the far-reaching power that is the cross. Not only did Christ's blood go all the way into the future and save you from your sins, but it had the power to reach back in time all the way to Abraham and save him from his. What Jesus would do on the cross would pay the sins for everyone in the entire world. Abraham's blessing, Mary and Joseph's promise, the story goes all the way to the cross. That's really where it becomes the new story, right? Everything that takes place after the cross. Then you're living in a whole new world. What an unusual way for Abraham's story to end, right? A 2,000-year-old story that ends with the cross, then resurrection, and then just a brand new blessing begins.